Hi, my name is Natalie. I work with new client onboarding here at TaxValet, and today we're talking about sales tax software providers. Sometimes people are very eager to find a solution to a problem, and it sounds like tax software providers can do that. But what we've found is there are lots of things embedded into contracts. So what the terms of the contracts are, how payments are drafted for these. Is it over a span of a year or a span of a month? Are there additional fees beyond the scope of the service contract? What services specifically are included in these contracts? And what kind of renewal am I hooked into? Like, is it an automated renewal? Am I notified? So we've had clients show up who are so eager to work with TaxValet only to find out that they're kind of hooked into a contract with a provider that they're no longer even benefiting from the services they've contracted. They're stuck in a contract that they can't get out of. There's no flexibility. There's no early termination. And so they're essentially paying for services where they're not benefiting in any shape or form. On top of that, we have clients who have a very long history of dissatisfaction, of issues. So some things I think that you can do as someone who's shopping these tax softwares are to really evaluate like the specific terms of your contract. I think it's really useful to get into a live conversation with whoever the person is that's selling you the software to clearly have them articulate the terms of the contract and when your payments will be due. We've seen in our experience there's a lot of miscommunication where a contract may show something as a prepayment, but it's not really a prepayment in the way that we would expect that to show up. It's not prepaid. It's basically like the payments are broken out through terms of 6 months, 12 months, whatever it might be. And in our experience, these contracts are binding, and these tax software providers truly, in our experience and in our clients' experience, haven't offered any flexibility. So you are locked into the full cost of your contract. Often the cost is quite steep, and for clients who are not utilizing these services, it's a huge out-of-pocket cost. What we have seen is if a client signs off on a contract, let's use an example of a 12-month contract. Clients have signed on the line, they've been contracted, and the tax software companies are holding clients to that full cost. Preventing this from happening, I think, is a tricky thing. I would really encourage people to be in the weeds of their contract, do as much research on, how satisfied are current clients, what kind of issues arise in the software, what are these tax software providers doing to take responsibility, take accountability, work with clients on resolving issues. And if that's not a fit for you, if what you're finding doesn't match your expectation, then I would truly discourage people from getting into a contract agreement. So some of the issues that we've noted are some kind of vague or disconnect between what the client thinks they're purchasing and what they're actually purchasing. We've seen that in a couple of different ways. One is where a client thinks that they're purchasing both a return service and a live tax calculation service, but they've really only purchased one or the other. I think it's really important to very carefully evaluate the terms of your contract, and it's important to note this distinction because there is a possibility that you could be buying one or the other, managed return services or tax calculation. It's also totally possible that you could be purchasing both, but making sure your expectation matches what your contract and service agreement is noting. TaxValet would probably be a really great fit for a company that's not sure how to navigate this really complex conversation with a tax software provider because number one, we offer a lot of full service, white glove service where we kind of handle everything from top to bottom. We manage tax settings, we manage returns. We also look out for the client's best interest to troubleshoot and mitigate any kind of liability risk. But beyond that, I think we're just a transparent company. What you see is what you get what you're paying for. It doesn't require a lot of in-depth knowledge of sales tax or the intricacies of sales tax to make sure that your tax calculation and your service are correct. Renewal is actually so important, and it's something that I think people don't often pay a lot of attention to because at the time of their contract, it's a year out, it's not a big worry. But what we find is people aren't really notified when their contract is about to renew, and it will auto-renew. And what that can look like is clients who are prepared to separate from these tax software providers don't realize that their contract has just been renewed for another year term, and now they're locked into an additional year. So again, the issue of paying for services that you may or may not be using. Clients, of course, have the option to stick it out and go through their full contract until it's at the point of renewing again, at which point they can terminate. But if they don't want to do that, if they're worried about incorrect filings, incorrect tax settings, then it's a lot of it's a substantial cost that's lost to them because they weren't aware, weren't looped into their renewal, and don't ultimately have the ability to terminate until their renewal period opens up again. So basically, someone is contracted for a tier of usage. If they go beyond the scope of that usage, oftentimes there's a one-time fee. And additionally, clients are often bumped to the next usage tier with no communication. It just really is reflected in a change in price that they're being billed. I've seen this happen several times where clients have no idea that they've been bumped up to the next tier of usage. And often it's a pretty substantial difference in the price that they're being billed. And I think if they're looking for a provider that takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, a lot of the questions and the micromanagement out of it, they should definitely come to TaxValet, because again, what you see is what you get. You don't have to be a sales tax expert to have everything that you're hoping to have accomplished be accomplished successfully and accurately.